refuting the false mind to eliminate the third aggregate and expose the unreality of the sixth consciousness. Thereupon, Ananda rose from his seat, uncovered his right shoulder, knelt upon his right knee, reverently joined the palms of his hands, and said to the Buddha, "I am the Tathagata's youngest cousin, and because of his great affection, I have been allowed to be his disciple. But I have presumed on his compassion, and so, although I have heard much of his preaching, I have failed to avoid the worldly, and have been unable to overcome the magic which has turned me round, causing me to visit a house of prostitution. All this because I failed to reach the region of reality. May the world-honored one be compassionate enough to teach us the path of samatha for the benefit of those lacking faith and holding perverted views." After saying this, he prostrated himself with knees, elbows, and head on the ground. Then he stood up in reverent silence, with the whole assembly keenly awaiting the teaching. Revealing the right samadhi. By the Buddha's transcendental power, all sorts of rays of light, as brilliant as hundreds and thousands of suns, shone from his forehead, illuminating all the Buddha lands, which shook with 6 kinds of quake. Thus a number of worlds, uncountable as the dust, appeared simultaneously, and, by the same power, united into a single world, wherein each of the great bodhisattvas, while staying in his own realm, brought his palms together to listen to the Dharma. Origin of inversion. The Buddha said, "Since the time without beginning, all living beings have given rise to all sorts of inversion, because of the karmic seed of ignorance, which is like the aksa shrub. This is why seekers of the truth fail to realize supreme enlightenment, but achieve only the states of Shravaka, Pratyeka Buddhas, heretics, devas, and demons, solely because they do not know the 2 basic inversions, thereby practicing wrongly, like those who cannot get food by cooking sand, in spite of the passing of eons as countless as the dust. What are these 2 basic inversions? Ananda, the first is the basic root of birth and death, caused, since the time without beginning, by the wrong use of a clinging mind, which people mistake for their own nature. And second is their attachment to causal conditions, which screen the basically bright essence of consciousness, which is the fundamentally pure and clean substance of nirvanic enlightenment. Thus they ignored this basic brightness, and so transmigrate through illusory realms of existence without realizing the futility of their wrong practice. Actual inversion, the inverted mind. Probe into the false mind. Ananda, you have inquired about the samatha gateway through which to escape from birth and death. I must ask you a question." The Buddha then held up his golden-hued arm and bent his finger, saying, "Ananda, do you see this?" Ananda replied, "Yes." The Buddha asked, "What do you see?" Ananda replied, "I see the Buddha raise his arm and bend his fingers, showing a shining fist that dazzles my mind and eyes." The Buddha asked, "How do you see it?" Ananda replied, "I and all those here use eyes to see it." The Buddha asked, "You say that I bend my fingers to show you a shining fist that dazzles your mind and eyes. Now tell me, what is that mind which perceives its brightness?" Ananda replied, "As the Tathagata asks about the mind, and since I am using my own to search for it exhaustively, I conclude that that which searches is my mind." Thinking is unreal. The Buddha said, "Hey, Ananda, this is not your mind." Ananda stared with astonishment, brought his 2 palms together, rose from his seat, and asked, "If this is not my mind, what is it?" The Buddha replied, "Ananda, this is your false thinking, which arises from external objects, deludes your true nature and deceives you into mistaking, since the time without beginning, a thief for your own son, thereby losing sight of that which is basically permanent. Hence the round of birth and death.